What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I'm going to talk about some expanded stuff leading up to Dallas Regionals. I'll be answering what the top players play at Cups, how likely is it that the top players actually like these decks for Dallas, and then, of course, what do I think the most popular decks will be in Dallas. I've been getting a lot of questions about what to play and what I think will be played, so I'll be covering what I think will be played today. And I'll be covering this a lot as we get closer to Dallas, but this is kind of like what we're like 17 or 18, 17 days out before the tournament, 16 days out before the tournament. So kind of a 2 to 3 week gap meta forecast, but I'll be talking about this a lot more as we go forward and get closer to Dallas. First off, before we get into the video, shout out to potownstore.com. They specialize in PTCGO codes. They have most PTCGO codes in stock and ready to email out automatically on purchase, and they've got really good prices, and you can use code Celio for 5% off there. And then also shout out to flipsidegaming.com, where I write weekly free articles. So my first question I'm going to cover is, what did top players play at Cups? Mostly this past week, the week after Christmas, but I also want to add in there that 3 weeks ago, Isaiah Bradner and Justin Kulas both won League Cups with Eggrow Plume, the deck that JW Craywall won Richmond Regionals with. And I think that was really good since ADP Dark and Ultra Necrozma both had some hype, and ADP Dark, some of the lists weren't running Weavile, so Plume was good versus that. And then, of course, Eggrow Plume is very good versus Ultra Necrozma. But I think all three of those decks I just mentioned, Eggrow, Ultra, and ADP Dark, all fell off. I think ADP Dark is just worse Turbo Dark. I think Eggrow is bad if people are expecting it. And I'll actually talk about why I think Ultra Necrozma is still good at the end of the video. So mostly what we'll be focusing on here, looking at the Cup metas. Last week there was a Georgia Marathon of Cups and an Iowa Marathon of Cups. So in Georgia, Grant Manley played Aranguru Dalstall, which he wrote a Poke Beach article on. And he also played Mewtwo and Mew box, which he won a cup with. Danny Altavia played Guardian and Mewtwo box, and then Tanner Hurley and Ben Branch both played Zoroark for, I believe, all of the expanded events. I had some friends that were at the Georgia events, and I asked them to scope out the meta for me. They said just about everything was played, really. There were 3 expanded cups there, and I think one of the days it was heavy on Turbo Dark. One of the days I know there were a few Guardians, and then the last cup of the marathon, I know a lot of the top players brought Mewtwo and Mew box, and there was just a lot of Mewtwo and Mew box in general. And then the Iowa Marathon was very Turbo Dark heavy, and Shocklock also made top cut multiple times. I believe Zach Cooper made top cut with Shocklock twice, and then he also won one of the expanded events with an Aranguru Dalstall-ish deck, not the same as Grant's. And then I believe Isaiah Chevelle also made top cut with Shocklock at one of the Iowa Cups. Nick Robinson made top cut twice there with Lucario GX, which he piloted to counter the heavy dark meta, because Iowa meta, it looked like 2 to 3 to 4 Turbo Darks were topping each of their cups. So yeah, it looks like we had a lot of things that were expected. The Turbo Dark, the Guardian, the Ultra, the Mewtwo, and then, and Zoroark. But then the Aranguru Dalstall, the Sableye, maybe the Night March wasn't too expected. I definitely don't think the Shocklock was expected. And I think Lucario GX was something that people were not talking about or really keeping on their radar. Or an article being completely about a deck usually doesn't count the deck out as a choice looking in the past. One time I can remember is last year for Hartford Regionals, Caleb Gettimer wrote an article about Zoroark, and then like 5 to 7 days later, DDG all played Zoroark to Hartford. It usually doesn't count the deck out as a choice unless it is a control or stall deck that thrives off secrecy and lack of preparation. And I'm also going to say that that kind of counts for playing the deck at Cups. Aranguru Dalstall, which Grant Manley played to Cups. It's not really the kind of deck that strikes me. It's not the kind of deck that I would expect a top player to pilot to a cup if they were trying to take down a regional with it in a couple weeks. Unless they're expecting everyone to just forget about it by then, or like the meta to just cycle out by then. So like people start testing counters for stall, and then stall, everybody thinks it's gone, so then stall can just be good again in 15 or 16 or 17 days, whenever Dallas is. So that could also be the possibility. They want to get it out now so people start countering it, so then it's uncountered by the time Dallas Regionals comes around. That could happen. And I think that's kind of what's happening with Ultra Necrozma. But not purposely, really. It's just Ultra Necrozma was a powerful deck, so people wanted to start countering it. So I don't think... I wouldn't expect the Doll Stall to be something that these top players play. Like the DDG level players, even though half of the people referred to as DDG aren't on Dead Draw Gaming's team anymore. But like the top 16 players, I don't expect Aranguru Dalstall to be played by the top 16, since it's so public right now. Like I said, unless everybody just completely counts it out by Dallas, then it becomes kind of mind games at that point. Like, do I play this? It can be countered against with Aranguru resource management in some decks. It can be completely countered by entire decks like Trevenant. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes, but it's something to keep an eye on. If you see people still talking about Dalstall in a week, then maybe expect counters, and I don't think I would expect it to be a heavy part of the meta. So what do I think the most popular decks will be in Dallas? In order from 1 to 5, I expect the most popular decks as of the current meta, the League Cups, what people are talking about online, YouTube videos, articles. I expect the 5 most popular decks to be Turbo Dark, Ultra Necrozma, Zoroark, Guardian, and Eggrow. So Turbo Dark, I think Turbo Dark is just a very, very good deck. And unlike Richmond, I think it's a very good deck that top players are not afraid to pilot anymore. And that's mostly because of Guzzlord from Cosmic Eclipse, which can even out the single prize matchups and just poor matchups in general. Mew and Guzzlord, Cosmic Eclipse can help with. So going into Richmond, I thought Turbo Dark was very good. It seems pretty safe because it could give control decks a rough time. But if people wanted to just give Turbo Dark a bad day, they could just play Buzzwole Garbodor. They could play Night March. They could play Hitmonwob, questionably. But Buzzwole Garbodor and Night March were the big two that I was looking at. That people could just play if they wanted to beat every Turbo Dark they saw, or have a really good chance at beating every Turbo Dark that they saw. So I don't think it's quite the same now. I do think Ultra Necrozma and Night March can still give Turbo Dark a hard time, but like I said, the Guzzlord Cosmic Eclipse really gives it a better chance against single prize decks. And Turbo Dark's just great. It's good against the Dalstall decks. It's good against pretty much anything that can pop up. Next, Ultra Necrozma. So Ultra Necrozma was one of the most hyped decks at the beginning of looking at the expanded format for Dallas. It's been on every YouTube channel. There's multiple articles written about it. It's being played on Ladder a lot. People are streaming it. It's all over Verbank and Hey Fonte, yada yada. So Ultra Necrozma is kind of like the obvious deck. And because of that, people start talking about counters, and it's not very hard to figure out counters for it. Just play a Faba and Versus Seekers, play a stall deck or a control deck, and just beat it because it's all basic attackers and all special energy. It's easy to counter because it's basic attackers and special energy, and you can just really take advantage of that strategy. So like Eggrow seemed really good. The Doll Stalls, the Sableye Garb, like I said, the Stalls, the Controls, and then Eggrow all seem really great into Ultra Necrozma. And I think people are forgetting about Ultra Necrozma now. There's plenty of other decks that are getting some hype. Guardian, The Doll Stall decks are getting hype. Turbo Dark seems like just this undisputed tier 1 deck that in the past it could just be countered out of the meta, and now the same thing, it seems like maybe can't happen. So I think the focus is really on Turbo Dark. How are we going to beat this heavy Turbo Dark meta? And then after that, the focus is on the new spicy decks like Doll Stall and Shocklock making a return. So I think Ultra Necrozma is kind of in the clear right now, but we'll have to see if that lasts. I do think Ultra Necrozma is a really good deck still. Like I said, even if it was being countered, it was still a great deck because the meta was centering itself around it. I talked about that a few weeks ago when I said the Ultra Necrozma was likely the BDIF. So I think Ultra Necrozma has a very good chance of doing well still. I probably wouldn't say it could make it past top 8, because I would imagine that in top 8 there will be some kind of control or stall deck of some sort, and I don't think Ultra Necrozma could win the tournament because of that. But I do think Ultra Necrozma could still get money, make it in the top 32. So I think it will be popular. Next is Zoroark. Zoroark is just a comfort deck. It's always there. I cannot count it out. I don't think Zoroark will die. Every time we think Zoroark and Expanded is going to get power crept out, people still continue to play it because it's consistent and they know the deck, and Toxin is strong. So definitely expect Zoroark. I'm preparing to play against one in day 1. I think it'll happen, so I have it at my 3rd for popularity. Next I have Guardian. So Guardian was actually 2nd most popular in Portland behind Dark, which was very surprising to people. And I believe it was 2nd. I could be wrong. Fact check me in the comments. So Guardian was very popular in Portland. It's getting a fair amount of play at Cups. I think it's a very good deck. It's actually one of the decks I've tested most and expanded so far. And this is important, and people forget it. I need to keep myself in check with this a lot. It's a deck that is cheap, and people have the cards for from Standard. So, Dallas Regionals can be a tournament for some people that they're going for, just because it's close, or just because it's cheap, or just because they need points, not because they love the expanded format. And those kind of players, which are usually on the like the casual to competitive level instead of like the aggro competitive level, the people that don't like expanded, they're just going, so then they'll translate a standard deck over to expanded. So that happens a lot. It used to happen with Buzzrock, and Buzzrock would have really high popularity and expanded because people would just take their standard Buzzrock and change a few things. And then the last one is Eggrow. I think Eggrow's really cheap to play. Players thought it was cool when JW played it and won in Richmond, and it actually had a lot of success in Richmond from different groups of players. And so I think people started testing Eggrow at the beginning for Dallas, and they're just going to stick it through and stay with Eggrow. So I think Eggrow will be played by actually much lower, whatever you want to call it, lower skill level, lower CP level, lower like players that frequent less tournaments. Whereas in Richmond, Eggrow was played by like the top of the top, and then I think that will change for Dallas. I don't think the top players will be going near Eggrow, and that'll be more of like a casual competitive deck. So I think that will have popularity. So the decks I would prepare for the most as of now, and the decks I'm personally preparing for the most as of now, are Turbo Dark, Ultra Necrozma, and Zoroark. And I'm keeping Guardian and Eggrow in mind, but I'll gladly take a loss to either of those. So this has been my meta update for Dallas Regionals. Let me know what else you want me to talk about. This channel will be mostly expanded content leading up to Dallas, but of course I'll have some Sword and Shield stuff going on too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.